Dr. Jiwoo Kim stepped off the transport ship and looked around in wonder. The space station was huge, bigger than anything she had ever seen. Shiny metal walls stretched high above her head, and strange lights floated in the air without any wires to hold them up. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was here, she felt very small. "Welcome to Station Harmony 7, said a voice behind her. Jiwoo turned around and saw a tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms. The creature's face was kind, but very different from any human face. "I am Coordinator Nexus. You must be the human teacher we have been waiting for." Jiwoo nodded and tried to smile. "Yes, I'm Dr. Kim. I'm here to teach about Earth's animals and plants." Nexus made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Yes, about that. Perhaps we should talk before you meet your students." They walked through long hallways filled with the strangest beings Jiwoo had ever imagined. Some looked like living crystals that made musical sounds when they moved. Others were so thin and light they seemed to float like ghosts. A few had too many legs to count, and one group had skin that changed colors every few seconds. "These are all students?" Jiwoo asked. "Some are students, others are teachers or workers," Nexus explained. "This station brings together young minds from 12 different worlds. Your students are all between the ages of 15 and 20 in their species years." They stopped outside a large door marked with symbols Jiwoo could not read. "Your classroom," Nexus said. "But first I must warn you about something important." Jiwoo felt worried. "What kind of warning?" "Your world, Sol 3, Earth. It is very different from other worlds. Most planets in our galaxy are much more peaceful than yours. The animals and plants are smaller and gentler. When we learned that Earth had intelligent life, many people did not believe it was possible." "I don't understand," Jiwoo said. "Earth is beautiful. We have amazing wildlife that I'm excited to share." Nexus looked uncomfortable. All 4 of his arms moved in what seemed like nervous gestures. "Perhaps you should start with very small examples, very gentle ones. Your students come from worlds where the biggest hunting animal is smaller than your, what do you call them? Insects." Jiwoo laughed. "You're worried about nothing. I brought wonderful videos of puppies and butterflies, things that will make them smile." The door opened and Jiwoo walked into her new classroom. 23 young aliens sat in special chairs made for their different body types. They all turned to look at her, and she could feel their nervousness like a thick cloud in the air. Near the window, 3 crystalline students sat together. When they moved, they made soft ringing sounds like tiny bells. These were the Velari, Jiwoo remembered from her training materials. They were made of living crystal and were supposed to be very smart, but also very easy to frighten. Floating near the ceiling were the Nethri students. They looked like they were made of thin, see-through cloth that moved in a wind that wasn't there. Their homeworld had very light gravity, so they had trouble with normal weight. In the front row sat the Pixari, who were small and furry with huge eyes. They reminded Jiwoo of teddy bears, except they had 6 arms and their fur changed from blue to purple when they were nervous. Right now, all 3 Pixari students were bright purple. "Hello, everyone," Jiwoo said in her friendliest voice. "I'm Dr. Kim from Sol 3, which you might know as Earth. I'm here to teach you about the wonderful animals and plants from my home world." The room became very quiet. A few students looked at each other with wide eyes. One of the Velari students made a sound like glass breaking. "Is something wrong?" Jiwoo asked. A Pixari student raised 2 of her 6 arms. "Teacher Kim, is it true that your world is very dangerous?" "Dangerous?" Jiwoo was surprised. "Not at all. Earth is beautiful and full of life. I can't wait to show you some of our amazing creatures." The students looked even more nervous. A Nethri floating near the back of the room whispered something that sounded like wind through leaves. The translation device on Jiwoo's wrist turned it into words. "My parents said humans are the only species that survived a death world." "Death world?" Jiwoo laughed again. "That's silly. Earth is perfectly safe. We have lovely animals that live right in our homes with us. Children play with them every day." This seemed to make the students even more frightened. The Pixari in front turned from purple to white. which Jiwoo's training said meant they were terrified. Well, Jiwoo said, trying to make her voice cheerful, I think the best way to show you is to start our lesson. I brought some wonderful videos that I know you'll love. She turned on her teaching screen, excited to share Earth's beauty with these young minds. She had no idea that in the next few minutes, she would accidentally cause the biggest panic in the station's history. Jiwoo walked to the front of the classroom and turned on the big screen. She was so excited to share Earth's wonderful animals with her new students. She had picked the perfect video to start with, something gentle and sweet that would make everyone smile. Today we'll begin with Earth's most beloved companions, she said happily. These are called dogs, and they're wonderful family pets that live in human homes. The screen lit up with a sunny meadow filled with green grass and yellow flowers. 3 golden retriever puppies came running into view, their fur shining like gold in the sunlight. They were playing together, rolling around and wrestling with each other. Their pink tongues hung out of their mouths as they panted with joy. The reaction in the classroom was not what Jiwoo expected. A loud crack filled the air as one of the Valari students' crystal bodies split down the middle. The sound was like a glass cup breaking, but much louder. The student was making a high-pitched noise that hurt Jiwoo's ears. Massive predators, the Valari student screamed through the translator. Look at the size of those killing machines. 2 of the Nethri students floating near the ceiling suddenly fell to the floor like dropped sheets. Their thin, ghost-like bodies were shaking and flickering. One of them kept saying the same words over and over. Too big, too big, too big. The 3 Pixari students in the front row had turned completely white with fear. Their 6 arms were covering their huge eyes, but they kept peeking through their fingers at the screen. One of them was reaching for something on their desk. Wait, what's wrong? Jiwoo asked, but her voice was lost in the noise. On the screen, the 3 puppies were still playing. One of them opened its mouth in a happy pant, showing its white teeth. This made everything worse. Weapons, shouted a student from the back of the room. Look at those sharp white weapons in their mouths. And they're so fast, cried another voice. They move like trained killers. The Pixari student finally found what she was looking for on her desk. She pressed a red button and suddenly a loud alarm started ringing throughout the station. The sound was so loud that Jiwoo had to cover her ears. Emergency beacon activated, said a robotic voice from speakers in the ceiling. Student distress signal received. Security responding. No, wait, Jiwoo called out, but the alarm was too loud. She tried to pause the video, but her hands were shaking. On the screen, one of the puppies had found a stick and was carrying it in its mouth. It's carrying a weapon, screamed the cracked Valari student. They're trained for combat. More students were making distress sounds now. Some of the crystal students were resonating at frequencies that made the windows shake. The floating Nethri were all on the floor, looking like deflated balloons. Even the students from species Jiwoo didn't recognize were showing signs of panic. Please, everyone calm down, Jiwoo said. But her voice couldn't be heard over the alarm and the students' cries. These are just puppies, they're babies, they're harmless. But the translator seemed to make things even worse. When it turned her words into the different alien languages, the students became more frightened. Baby apex predators. One of them yelled, If these are the young ones, how big are the adults? And humans keep them in their homes, added another voice. They live with these monsters. Jiwoo finally managed to turn off the video, but the damage was done. The screen went black, but the students were still panicking. Some were trying to hide under their desks. Others were making phone calls to what Jiwoo guessed were their parents. The classroom door burst open, and security guards rushed in. They were wearing the gray uniforms of station security, but Jiwoo noticed that most of them stopped at the doorway when they saw the chaos inside. What happened here? Demanded the lead security officer, a tall alien with blue skin and many eyes. I just showed them a video of puppies, Jiwoo said weakly. Golden retriever puppies playing in a field. The security officer's many eyes all turned to look at her at the same time. You showed them what? Dogs, Jiwoo repeated. Family pets. They're completely harmless. The officer made a sound that might have been a groan. He spoke into a device on his wrist. Command, we need a full medical team in Classroom 7. And get me Commander Tejo. We have a Code Orange situation. Code Orange? Jiwoo asked. Deathworld cultural contamination, the officer explained. Students exposed to inappropriate content from high-danger worlds. Jiwoo felt like the floor was falling away under her feet. High-danger worlds? But Earth is perfectly safe. The officer looked at her with something that might have been pity. Ma'am, your planet is classified as one of the most dangerous worlds in known space. Those harmless pets you just showed would be considered super predators on most civilized worlds. As medical teams rushed in to help the still panicking students, Jiwoo realized that her simple teaching job had just become much more complicated than she ever imagined. The medical teams were still helping the frightened students when Jiwoo decided she needed to fix this situation quickly. Half of her class was sitting in the hallway drinking calming tea that smelled like flowers. The other half was still in the classroom, but they kept looking at the blank screen like it might suddenly show more monsters. Students, please come back to your seats, Jiwoo said in her gentlest voice. I think there was just a misunderstanding. Let me show you something much more peaceful. The Pixari student who had pressed the emergency button raised 4 of her 6 arms. Teacher Kim, maybe we should stop for today? No, Jiwoo said quickly. I have the perfect thing to show you, something that will prove Earth animals can be gentle and beautiful. She turned the screen back on and several students immediately covered their eyes. Trust me, Jiwoo said. This will be wonderful. The new video started with a view of bright, blue ocean water. Gentle waves moved up and down under a sunny sky. Soft music played in the background. Jiwoo smiled as a group of dolphins appeared on the screen, jumping out of the water in graceful arcs. The reaction was immediate and much worse than before. Flying attack beasts, screamed the repaired Valari student whose crystal body immediately cracked again. They can leave the water, shouted a Nethri student who had just returned to floating near the ceiling. Aquatic predators with aerial assault capabilities. On the screen, the dolphins were playing together, diving and jumping in perfect harmony. To Jiwoo, it looked like nature's most beautiful dance. To her students, it looked like a military training exercise. Look at their formation flying, cried one of the Pixari students. They move together like a war squadron. And they're huge, added another voice. Those things are bigger than our transport ships. Jiwoo paused the video on a scene of a dolphin jumping high into the air, water droplets sparkling around it like diamonds. But they're just playing, she said desperately. See how happy they look? Happy? The Valari student's voice cracked like breaking ice. That's a battle cry. Look at its mouth. It's showing its weapons. The dolphin in the frozen image had its mouth open in what Jiwoo knew was a friendly expression. But she could see how the alien students might think the dolphin's teeth looked frightening. These creatures hunt in organized packs, said a new voice. A student from a species Jiwoo hadn't met yet was standing up and pointing at the screen. And they can attack from water, air, or land interfaces. Your world has created the perfect predators. Perfect predators? Jiwoo laughed, but it sounded weak even to her. They eat fish, small fish. Fish? The student's translator made a shocked sound. You mean there are even smaller creatures in your waters? How many different types of killers does your world have? The emergency alarm started ringing again. This time, 3 different students had pressed their panic buttons at the same time. Okay, Jiwoo said, turning off the video quickly. Let me try something completely different, something that couldn't possibly frighten anyone. She scrolled through her files looking for the most harmless thing she could find. Then she smiled. Perfect. She had a beautiful video of monarch butterflies that her nephew had taken last summer. Look, she said to her terrified students. These are called butterflies. They're tiny, delicate creatures that drink flower nectar. They're so gentle that human children chase them for fun. The new video showed thousands of orange and black butterflies filling the sky during their autumn migration. They moved like a living cloud, their wings catching the sunlight as they flew south for the winter. This time, the panic was immediate and total. Invasion fleet, screamed every student at once. The Valari students' bodies were making sounds like a crystal orchestra, falling downstairs. The Nethri had all collapsed to the floor again, but this time they were trying to crawl under the desks. The Pixari students had turned so white they were almost transparent. "Billions of them," cried one student. "It's a full-scale atmospheric invasion." "Look at their formation patterns," shouted another. "Military precision over vast distances. And they have war markings." The student pointed at the butterfly's orange and black wing patterns. "Territorial display coloration." On the screen, the beautiful butterflies continued their peaceful migration, completely unaware that they were being viewed as an alien armada by terrified students from across the galaxy. The classroom door burst open again, but this time it wasn't just security guards. Commander Taeho, the only other human on the station, stood in the doorway with his mouth hanging open. "Jiwoo," he said slowly, "what exactly have you been showing them?" "Just butterflies," Jiwoo said in a small voice. "I thought butterflies would be safe." Commander Taeho looked at the chaos in the classroom, then at the screen still showing thousands of migrating monarchs, then back at Jiwoo. "We need to talk," he said. "Right now." Commander Taeho led Jiwoo away from the chaos in the classroom, to his office on the other side of the station. The hallways were buzzing with activity as medical teams rushed past them carrying equipment. Jiwoo could hear announcements over the station speakers about emergency counseling sessions and trauma response teams. "Am I in trouble?" Jiwoo asked as they walked. "I was just trying to teach them about Earth's animals." Taeho didn't answer until they reached his office. The room was small but comfortable, with a desk, 2 chairs, and a large window that looked out at the stars. On his desk were pictures of Earth that made Jiwoo feel homesick. "Sit down," Taeho said gently. "We need to have a serious talk." Jiwoo sat in the chair across from his desk. "I don't understand what went wrong. I showed them the most harmless animals I could think of. Puppies, dolphins, butterflies, things that children love." Taeho was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up a holographic display that floated above his desk. "Jiwoo, what do you know about Earth's classification in the Galactic Council?" "Classification?" Jiwoo shrugged. "Not much. I know we're new members and that most other species are excited to meet us." "Excited and terrified," Taeho corrected. "Earth is officially classified as a Class 3 death world by the Galactic Council. Do you know what that means?" Jiwoo shook her head. "It means our planet is considered one of the most dangerous places in the known galaxy," Taeho explained. "Most species refuse to believe that intelligent life could even survive on a world like ours, let alone evolve there." The holographic display changed to show a chart with different colored planets. Earth was in the red section at the very bottom, with only a few other worlds. "But that's impossible," Jiwoo said. "Earth is beautiful. We have forests and oceans and mountains. It's a paradise." "To us, yes," Taeho agreed. "But look at this." The display changed again, showing a small creature that looked like a cotton ball with tiny legs. It was about the size of Jiwoo's thumb and was delicately sipping nectar from a flower that was even smaller. "This," Taeho said, "is called a Fury Beast. It comes from the planet Serenity Prime, and it's considered the most dangerous predator on that world." Jiwoo stared at the tiny, fluffy creature. "That little thing? What does it hunt, dust particles?" "Flower nectar," Taeho said seriously. "And sometimes very small seeds. The people of Serenity Prime built walls around their cities to keep these monsters out." "You're joking." "I'm not." Taeho changed the display again. "This is from the planet Haven, home of the Nethri students in your class." The new image showed an even smaller creature, something that looked like a tiny soap bubble with thread-like legs. It was so small and transparent that Jiwoo had to squint to see it properly. "This is their apex predator," Taeho continued. "It feeds on morning dew and occasionally attacks fallen leaves. The average weight of all animal life on Haven is less than 1 Earth gram." Jiwoo felt her stomach drop as she began to understand. "So, when I showed them golden retrievers, you showed them 100-pound carnivorous predators with bone-crushing jaw strength," Taeho finished. "To put this in perspective, the largest animal on most galactic worlds is smaller than an Earth mouse. Your harmless puppies are the size of kaiju monsters to them. The display showed Earth animals next to their galactic equivalents. A house cat appeared next to creatures that looked like tiny fluffs of cotton. A dolphin appeared next to something that resembled a floating soap bubble. And the butterflies? Jiwoo asked weakly. Billions of armored flying creatures moving in coordinated formations across vast distances, Taeho said. Most galactic species never developed flight because their worlds don't have enough large flying creatures to make it necessary. When they saw your butterfly migration, they thought they were watching an invasion force. Jiwoo put her head in her hands. I've traumatized an entire classroom of children. It's not your fault, Taeho said kindly. Nobody told you about Earth's classification. The Galactic Council wanted to keep it quiet so that other species wouldn't be too afraid to interact with us. How do you know all this? Jiwoo asked. I've been here for 2 years, Taeho explained. I learned the hard way when I tried to show my alien friends pictures of my pet cat. 3 of them fainted and 1 called the military because he thought Earth was planning to invade his home world with small tiger-class assault beasts. Jiwoo looked out the window at the stars, thinking about home. So what am I supposed to do? How can I teach them about Earth's biodiversity without giving them nightmares? Taeho smiled for the first time since they'd started talking. That's the real challenge, isn't it? But I think there might be a way. You just need to change your approach completely. 3 days later, Jiwoo stood outside her classroom door, taking deep breaths to calm her nerves. This time she wasn't alone. Next to her stood Dr. Cleeth, a friendly alien from the planet Haven. Dr. Cleeth looked like a tall, thin person made of silver light, and when she moved, she made soft musical sounds. Are you sure this will work? Jiwoo asked. We must try, Dr. Cleeth replied in her gentle voice. Your students deserve to learn, and Earth's creatures deserve to be understood, not feared. They walked into the classroom together. Only half of the original students had returned, and they all looked very nervous. The Pixari students were still pale blue instead of their normal purple, which meant they were scared but trying to be brave. The Valari students had been repaired, but their crystal bodies were dim and quiet. Hello, everyone, Jiwoo said softly. I want to apologize for frightening you last week. I didn't understand how different our worlds are. Today, Dr. Cleeth is going to help me show you Earth's animals in a new way. Dr. Cleeth stepped forward and smiled. When she smiled, her silver light grew brighter. I come from a world very much like yours, she told the students. Dr. Kim and I are going to show you creatures from both our worlds side by side, so you can understand the differences. Jiwoo turned on the screen, and several students immediately covered their eyes. Please trust us, she said. I promise to go very slowly. The screen showed the same golden retriever puppies from before, but this time the image was split in half. On the left side were the Earth puppies, and on the right side was Dr. Cleeth's version of the same type of animal. The Haven creatures looked like tiny balls of white fluff with stick-thin legs. They were no bigger than marbles and moved very slowly and carefully. One of them was gently touching a flower petal with its nose. These are companions from my world, Dr. Cleeth explained. They live with families and bring joy, just like Dr. Kim's puppies. But as you can see, they are very different sizes. The student stared at the comparison. Slowly, one of the Pixari students raised 2 of her 6 arms. The tiny ones are cute, she said carefully. But the big ones are still very scary. I understand, Jiwoo said, but look how the human children interact with them. She played a video of her nephew playing gently with a golden retriever, petting its soft fur and laughing as the dog licked his face. The massive size difference between the dog and child was clear, but so was the love and safety between them. The child is not afraid, observed a Valari student, her crystal body chiming softly with curiosity instead of fear. Humans grow up with these animals, Jiwoo explained. We learn to live together safely, just like you live safely with your companions, even though they might seem too small for us to notice. Dr. Cleeth showed more comparisons. Earth cats next to Haven creatures that looked like floating soap bubbles. Earthbirds next to tiny flying specks that were barely visible. Each time she explained how both types of animals served similar purposes in their worlds, just at very different scales. The breakthrough came when Jiwoo showed them a video of her grandmother feeding pigeons in a park. The birds were gathering around an elderly woman who was scattering breadcrumbs and talking to them like old friends. "Your elder is surrounded by flying creatures and she's not afraid," said a Nethri student, floating closer to the screen. "She's feeding them?" "Pigeons are very common in human cities," Jiwoo explained. "My grandmother feeds them every morning. She knows each bird and has given them names." The students watched in amazement as the grandmother gently picked up a pigeon to check its injured wing before setting it down carefully. "She's healing it," whispered a Pixari student, "even though it could hurt her with its weapons." "Beaks," Jiwoo corrected gently. "And yes, humans often help injured animals, even wild ones." For the rest of the class, the students asked questions instead of screaming. They wanted to know how humans learned to live with such large creatures. They were amazed that human children could sleep safely in the same houses as 100-pound predators. When the class ended, the students didn't run away. Instead, they gathered around Dr. Cleeth and Jiwoo with excited chatter. "Next week," announced the Valari student who had cracked it twice before, "we want to show you our world's creatures. We have some very fierce animals, too." The following week, the alien students proudly presented their homeworld's wildlife. Jiwoo watched videos of creatures so small and gentle that she could barely see them, while the students described them as terrifying monsters and dangerous predators, with obvious pride. A tiny creature that looked like a dust speck was described as the lightning-fast hunter of the northern forests. Another animal that resembled a floating piece of cotton was called the mighty aerial dominator of the sky realms. Jiwoo found herself fighting not to smile at how cute everything was, while the students beamed with pride at their world's fearsome beasts. As the semester continued, both sides learned that the galaxy was vast enough for both gentle soap bubble creatures and 100-pound golden retrievers. The students from soft worlds learned that humans weren't impossibly brave, just adapted to their environment. And Jiwoo learned that bravery comes in many different sizes. On her last day at the station, the Pixari student who had first pressed the panic button gave her a small gift. It was a crystal containing a tiny creature from her homeworld. No, bigger than a grain of sand. "This is our most dangerous predator," the student said proudly. "I want you to have it so you remember us." Jiwoo held the crystal carefully, watching the microscopic creature float peacefully in its tiny world. "I'll treasure it always," she promised. As her transport ship pulled away from Station Harmony 7, Jiwoo looked back at the place where she had learned that the universe was big enough for every kind of life, no matter how different they might seem.